Hi boys and girls, so today we are doing Unit 11, Lesson 10 on page 171 in your student journal. So before we get started on our objective for the day, we are going to do a problem of the day, which is solving for intervals, so word problems involving time. So let me go ahead and read this to you. Jack started building with Legos at 10:45. He finished at 11:57. How much time did he spend building? So his starting time was 10:45 and his finishing time or his ending time was at 11:57. So we want to know the interval between 10:45 and 11:57. So if you want to do this alone, you can pause right now. Otherwise, you can go ahead and do it with me. I'm going to do this using my mountains, my hills, my boulders, and my rocks. We know that a mountain is worth 1 hour. I know that my hills are worth 10 minutes. I know that my boulders are worth 5 minutes. And I know that my rocks or pebbles are worth 1 minute. So that's how I'm going to go ahead and hop. Here I have my number line. I'm starting with my starting time, which is 10:45. And I know that to get to 11:57, I am going to need to hop an hour. So I'm going to go on a nice drive, and I'm going to drive over my mountain for an hour. It takes me 1 hour to drive over my mountain. So what time is it going to be in 1 hour? Well, 10:45 plus 1 hour gets me to 11:45. Remember, I'm trying to get to 11:57. So now what am I going to drive over next? Well, let me think here. Can I go 10 minutes? Let's see. I'm going to go on a drive next over my hill. My hill is 10 minutes long. So I go on a little trip over my hill, and 11:45 plus 10 minutes gets me to 11:55. So far so good. I'm trying to get to 11:57, so now I know that I need to drive over some little rocks. So 55, 56, 57. So that's my 2 extra minutes that it took me to drive over those rocks, and I get to my ending time, which is 11:57. So in order to find the difference, what do I need to do? Well, I need to figure out how long that drive took me. Well, it took me 1 hour plus 10, 11, 12 minutes. 1 hour and 12 minutes. Okay? If you wanted to convert this to minutes, you know that 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes, so I would add 60 minutes plus my leftover 12 minutes. So 60 plus 12 gets me to 72 minutes. So 72 minutes is the same as 1 hour and 12 minutes. All right? Okay, so again, as we have been focusing on, we know that volume is the amount of space within a three-dimensional object. And today, since we are finding or solving word problems with liquid volume, we are going to use that tape diagram that we like to use where it's the whole, part, and part, okay? So remember, we know that a part plus a part equals a whole. So if you know 2 parts, you can find out the whole. If you know the whole and you know 1 part, and you subtract them, you'll find the missing part or the difference. So that's what we're going to do today to solve. Let's also remember that 1,000 milliliters is equal or the same as 1 liter. So 1,000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. Okay? On to my input. It says Dana's beaker has a volume, a liquid volume of 500 milliliters. It's half of a liter. She added 250 milliliters to her beaker. What is the liquid volume of her beaker now? Well, I see the keyword added right here, so I know that I'm going to be doing an addition problem. Now I want to use my tape model, or we sometimes call it a bar model, my whole and my parts. Okay, here's my whole, here's my parts. Do I know my first part? Because she had 500 milliliters at first. Do I know the second part that she added on? I do. She added on 250 milliliters. So we know that if we have 2 parts, we can add those parts together to equal my whole. So I'm going to add 500 plus 250, and I end up with 750 milliliters. Okay? So number 1 is 750 milliliters. Let's go ahead and look at number 2. Young had 1,000 milliliters of water in his beaker. Notice the past tense word of had here. He poured out 350 milliliters of water. How much is left? So he started with some amount and then he ended with an amount, and we're trying to find the difference or how much is left. So when you hear the word difference, you should automatically know what type of problem you are going to be doing, what operation you're going to be using. Let's go ahead and do our model, our wholes and our parts. Do we have the whole this time? We do. The whole is always the amount that he started with, okay? So he started with 1,000 milliliters. That wasn't the part that he had, that was the whole amount that he had. And then he poured out 350 milliliters. That was the part that he poured out. Okay, so we started with 1,000 and he poured out 350. And we want to know that missing part of how much is left, okay? So we started with 1,000. He ended up with 350. We want to know this part here that's left. Well, how do we solve for that? How do we solve for a missing part? We subtract. So we're going to go ahead and do 1,000 minus 350. So 0 minus 0 is 0. Can I do 0 minus 5? No. If I have nothing, I can't take 5 away. So I go next door, but I can't regroup. So I go next door again. My 1 turns into a 0. Okay. I brought my 10 over. Now I can't regroup here into my tens place until I regroup again. Okay, because I brought 10 over here, but I can't bring 10 over here automatically to my tens place until I do it again. So take 1 away and add 10 on. 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 3 is 6. And 0 minus nothing is 0. So you will end up with 650 milliliters. So 650 milliliters is how much he ended up with after he poured 350 milliliters out of his beaker. That is your missing part. Okay? Let's go on to the structure guided practice together. Tommy, Elise, and Ralph had 300 milliliters of volume in each of their beakers. There's 3 of them. And they had 300 milliliters each. How much liquid volume do they have all together? So there are 3 of them. There are 3 parts here, and they each had 300 milliliters. So we see our bar diagram or our tape diagram a lot where there's 2 parts and a whole. But this time we don't have 2 parts. How many parts do we have? You should have said, well, we have 3 parts, Miss Dawn, just because there are 3 kids. So I have a whole, and then I have 3 parts this time. Do I know what my whole is? No, because that's what I'm looking for. But what do we know? Well, we know that each of them has how much liquid? 300 milliliters. So Tommy has 300 milliliters, Elise has 300 milliliters, and Ralph has 300 milliliters. Now, what do we need to do in order to solve for how much they have all together for a whole? We need to add them up. So we're going to do 300 plus 300 plus 300. 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0 again. 3 plus 3 is 6. Plus 3 more is 9. So my answer comes out to 900 milliliters. That's my whole. That's how much the 3 of them have all together. Okay? And last but not least, there was, I already hear was, past tense, 72 liters of soda for a school party. That's a lot of soda. Those are 72 big bottles of soda. The teachers needed to divide, oh my goodness, that's a new word, the soda equally among 8 classrooms. How many liters did each classroom get? So let's think about this, friends. There were 72 liters altogether, and the teacher divided them equally. You know when you're talking about dividing something equally, that it's a division problem. Well, how many classrooms were there? How many groups? There were 8, okay? So how do we do this? Let's see. There were 72 liters, and they were divided equally among 8 classrooms. So if we do 72 divided by 8, that's going to tell us how many liters each classroom got. So how many times does 8 go into 72? I want you to figure this out for a second. And you should have gotten 9 liters. And the way that we can check this is by doing our inverse. 9 times 8 equals 72. Okay, so each class got 9 liters of soda. Okay, 9 liters of soda times 8 classrooms equals our whole of 72. 72 divided by 8 equals 9. Okay, so for the rest of this, make sure you're paying attention to those keywords because we don't have just addition and subtraction in here. We also have some division going on. So make sure that you are looking for those keywords to help you figure out what operation to use to solve. Okay? All right, boys and girls, let me know if you have any questions. I am here to help.